NFL Talk with Elite Wages.
Yo, yo, yo! What's happening, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Wages. This is obviously Friday night, so we're going to be talking NFL Sunday, Monday Night Football as well. Had a good episode on Wednesday for Thursday Night Football. Obviously, we don't go into Thursday Night Football, but it was actually a good game for a change, Vikings and the Rams, good game to watch. We'll recap that next week, but let's get started. Let's get into my first play for NFL Sunday of week 8, and this is actually the first time I'm going to be betting on this team, and since it's my team, we're going to break it down first. So I've been no stranger to actually playing things in Packers games to start the season. And as a Packers fan, I try to be unbiased as possible when I make my plays. So that's probably why I haven't actually pulled the trigger and backed them, moneyline or sort of on the spread. And that's going to be up until now. So the NFC North is actually the hardest division in football right now, and every team is over 0.500, ranging from the Lions and Vikings, who are 5-1. The Packers are 5-2. And the Bears are 4-2. We're at the sort of the nitty-gritty stage now in the division already, quite early on, but we're in the nitty-gritty. We're only week 8, but every win from here on out is crucial in the division. One slip up, it can send first into fourth. One good win can send fourth into first, so it's that close. And it's for that reason I think the Packers will have added confidence heading into this game. The Packers have actually started the season as one of the best offenses in the NFL, and they rank 7th for points per game with 26.5 on average. They also rank 6th in total yardage per game, averaging 382. 5th in rushing yards per game, that's averaging 155, and obviously that's led by Josh Jacobs. And then they also have Jordan Love, who's averaging 270 passing yards per game. He's also tied second in passing touchdowns with 15, and you've got to bear in mind he has missed 2 games as well. So, offense is looking solid, and coming off a huge win against a lot of people's favourites to take down the Chiefs in the AFC, the Houston Texans. They won by 2, but we're currently riding a 3-win streak, and 5 straight games scored 24 points or more. And obviously, we've won 5 out of the last 6 games as well. So offense is looking solid, grinding out some good wins, but the defense is just as good, really. No other team has more takeaways to start the year. I think we're tied second now for interceptions per game as well. The Packers average 2.4 takeaways per game, which is a league high. And that statistic is the staple of this defense. Our secondary is playing very, very good football. We've been sort of a mediocre defense to start the year, middle of the pack in total yardage allowed, rushing yardage, pass yardage, but we're ranked 10th for least points allowed per game, averaging 20 allowed. So with the mixture of the solid offense and fairly decent defense, your secondary is our strong suit. If we can just get in the sack column a little bit more down in the trenches, we should be looking very, very solid. So a mixture of the solid offense, decent defense. We've managed to cover a -4 spread in 4 of our 5 wins so far. This week the Packers will travel to Jacksonville to face the Jaguars. Now the Jaguars have just flown back from London after earning their 2nd win of the season against the New England Patriots. They've been an underwhelming team. They've underperformed a great deal to start the season. Their only wins came against this year's and last year's bottom 3 ranked team, the Patriots, and they also beat a division rival in the Colts. The Jaguars are averaging 20 points per game, 325 yards per game, which ranks them in the bottom half of the league in both of those categories. The Jaguars' run game has been their best form of attack, but as they've been down for the majority of the season, they're only rushing 41% of snaps. On their defense is where they've particularly struggled. They allow the third most points per game, averaging 27.7, fifth most total yardage, which is 376 yards per game, and they turn teams over the third least amount as well, so they don't get any help on their defense, and it seems like a mismatch all over the field. The Packers offense is better than the Jaguars offense, and the Packers defense is better than the Jaguars defense, so I don't think the Packers will have a problem scoring points on the Jaguars, and I don't think the Packers will. I do think the Packers will be able to keep the Jaguars at bay relatively easy. After all, the Packers' point differential as well is plus 43, and the Jaguars is minus 49, so there's a huge difference in two teams there. The Jaguars have failed to cover a plus 4 spread in 3 of their 5 losses, one of them pushed at 4, so I feel confident that the Packers will take this game by 4 or more. So we're going to go 1 unit, Green Bay Packers minus 4 at odds of 1.9.
Okay, next up we're going to roll with another NFC team, and well, to be honest, we bet on near enough all of them this week. We had the Vikings on Thursday, we got the Packers for the first bet this week, and we're going to go over to the Lions in this one. So the Lions, they've probably become the most enjoyable team to watch in the NFL over the last few years. They have, for me, as a Packers fan, it's hard to watch their success, but they've actually been really, really good to watch, really fun to watch. The past couple of weeks they've been absolutely awesome on offense. Last season they led the league in points per game on average, and so far this year they're right up there again. So to start the year, they've scored 30 points on average, a number they've actually hit in the last 3 games in a row. Over those 3 games, their average has taken a huge bump up to 40 points per game, so it's gone from 30 to 40 in the last 3 games. The 5-1 Lions, they will face the Tennessee Titans this week as they look to extend their 4-game win streak to 5. This again looks like another mismatch. The Lions are favoured in this game by 11, and there's no way I am going to be betting the minus 11 on any team. As high as I am on this Lions team, I have not got the balls for that. So I am, however, going to go back to the Lions in this game. The Lions team total, it has been set at 27.5, and as I mentioned, in the last 3 games they've had 30 plus, 40 on average, and their offense is looking incredibly good recently. They're the 3rd best passing offense in terms of passing yards with 256 on average. They rank 6th for passing touchdowns, and as for their rushing offense, both Monty and Gibbs have played a part in making the Lions the 4th best rushing team in yardage, which is 155 on average, and they average just under two rushing touchdowns per game, which is the 2nd best in the NFL. It's clear that if they don't beat you through the air, they will definitely beat you on the ground. There's not many ways to stop this team from rolling. In total yardage, they're 2nd overall, 411 total yards. They are 2nd in touchdowns per game, and they are 4th in red zone scoring attempts per game with 4 on average. So if they get in the end zone, it's pretty much a touchdown. They call it wraps. It seems like I'm just reeling off loads and loads of stats to show how good the Lions are. That's pretty much what I'm doing. The Lions have been that good that in the last 4 games, the Lions have totaled 16 incompletions, but they have scored 18 touchdowns. So they've had more touchdowns than they have incompletions in the last 4 games. How crazy is that? They are the first team in NFL history to achieve this since the merger. As for their opponents, the Tennessee Titans, I was actually looking forward to seeing this team perform on defense with all the acquisitions they made during the off-season, but they've not played well at all. They were very, very underwhelming. The Titans, they're allowing an average of 24 points per game, and that's with only playing 2 top 10 offenses so far this year. The Titans have only allowed 2 teams to have 28 or more points, and they were 2 of the top 10 offenses. That was Green Bay and that was Buffalo. Where do the Lions rank in terms of offense? They rank above both Green Bay and Buffalo. The Titans have, however, been able to limit opposing teams' yardage with the lowest yards per game average, but again, 5 of those 6 teams faced a bottom half of the league for total yardage. The Titans' ball control has been a huge issue. They allow teams to turn them over on average 2 times per game. Detroit isn't a team who you want to be facing when it comes to takeaways. They average almost 2 takeaways themselves. All in all, I believe this game is going to be a huge mismatch. I don't have the bottle to take -11. It wouldn't surprise me in the slightest to see Detroit win by 11 or more. But I also believe the team total is the play to make with the least amount of risk. I expect the Lions team to pour it on against this weak Titans team. So we're going to go 1 unit. Detroit Lions team total over 27.5. That's odds of 1.74. We're going to go now to... Let's do the team bets first. So we're going to go over to the Bengals and Eagles game. So originally, looking at this game, I felt like it had a potential game of the week feel. But there's always the concern in games like these that they could turn into a snooze fest. Both teams head into this game with a 2-game win streak, and they'll battle it out to make it 3. On these kind of occasions, one team sort of tends to step it up on defense to basically to stop the other team. So it could be. I have a feeling it could be a snooze fest, but I also have a feeling it could be a bit of a shootout between these two quarterbacks as well. So the Eagles actually come into this game with a better record, the 4-2. Prior to the season, it was probably expected, but in their wins, they've been far from convincing. They put up a season-high 34 points in Week 1 against the Packers in their 5-point win, but that was honestly probably the best win they've had all year, and that was in Week 1. They took an embarrassing loss on the last-minute drive, which ended in a touchdown to Falcons in Week 2. They struggled to find the end zone in Week 3 in a 3-point win against the Saints. I think it was 15-12. Week 4, they got slaughtered by Baker Mayfield and the Bucs. That was 34-16. They struggled against a poor Browns team as they won by 4 in Week 6. And last week, finally had a solid performance, but it was against a really, really underwhelming Giants team. My point, reeling all this off, is even though their record is positive, it doesn't necessarily mean they've played well. Their strength of schedule is certainly winnable, but they've struggled against those teams that should have been beaten fairly easily. So the Eagles are ranked 17th for points per game, with 22 on average. But it's only really Saquon that's been the spark plug for this offense so far. He's the only one sort of doing consistent work. Jalen Hurts and the Eagles, they're averaging the 10th lowest passing yards per game with 195. Saquon Barkley is helping them become the second best team in terms of rushing. And the team rushes for 165 on average. With Barkley playing so well, it's realistic to assume that Nick Sirianni is going to try and force feed Barkley 20 carries in this game. And that would make them fairly one-dimensional. Obviously, A.J. Brown and Smith are back, so the pass gaming is an option now as well. But on the other side of the ball, the Bengals, they will enter this game with the losing record, and that's 3-4. And honestly, that wasn't on my preseason bingo card. Despite this losing record, however, they've actually been playing some really good football. They've been really, really unlucky in a lot of their games, and realistically, they could actually be 5-2 or 6-1. Or if they beat the Patriots in Week 1, they could be 7-0. All 4 of their losses have been one-score games, and they've lost by an average of 3.4 points. So let me just run down the ways they lost in those games. So they lost by a walk-off field goal in a 1-point loss to the Chiefs. Lost a shootout to Daniels and the Commanders by 5. They lost to the Ravens in overtime via a walk-off field goal, but they did miss their own game-winning field goal attempt as well, so they could have easily won that if that field goal would have gone in. So all in all, they've played some really good football, and they've lost due to some really bad luck. The Bengals have been averaging a top 10, 25 points per game on average, and in the last 3 games, they've allowed opposing teams 20 points per game. More recently, they only allowed the Giants and Browns 21 points combined. The big difference for me in this game between the Bengals and the Eagles is the Bengals, aside from that game against the Patriots, they've won those winnable games, and they've come very, very close to winning against tough teams. The Chiefs, Commanders, Ravens, they all rank inside the top 7 in the power rankings. Whereas the Eagles have realistically struggled against every team they've played. Apart from the Giants, they've struggled against the hard teams, they've struggled against the good teams, and they've struggled against the bad teams. Prior to the season, I had Joe Burrow as comeback player of the year. I actually like the Bengals to make a deep run into the playoffs, and it's games like these where Joe and the Bengals need to show up and really perform. So I believe this is going to be a Bengals win, and I'm happy going with what is in my personal opinion, the better team. So we're going to go 1 unit, Cincinnati Bengals at odds, or Cincinnati Bengals money line at odds of 1.75. Okay, rolling on to the next one. It's going to be in the Bills and Seahawks game, and in my opinion, this is probably going to be a sneaky contender for game of the week. When you look at both teams, this could easily turn into a shootout, and it could be points galore. However, I am going to be taking a slightly risky game prop in this one. I'm going to take a different approach, a different angle, and it's going to involve both teams. So both teams are going to need to contribute to this for it to cash. I'm not going to mention it. I'm going to go through it first and then see if you can guess, and I'll let you know anyway. So firstly, the Bills are enjoying a 5-2 record. Their 2 losses came against 2 other AFC contenders, which were the Ravens and the Texans. Josh Allen, he's got a reputation of a turnover machine in the past few years, but this season, he's still yet to throw an interception all year. In fact, Josh Allen has been the highest rated quarterback through 7 weeks with a 77.6 quarterback rating. He's been efficient, he's been precise, he's been really, really good with his passing, and obviously in the run game as well. And although he is outside the top 10 in total passing yards, he's averaging a fairly solid 211 passing yards per game. Now, Buffalo actually passed the second least amount of times in the league, and that does have a lot to do with their game scripts being more suited to the run game after having large leads in a few of their games. But everyone knows when he needs to, Allen can step up and he can throw 300 yards no problem on any given day. And he proved that again in their Week 1 contest against the Titans. Over the last few years, Josh Allen, he's been right up there in terms of total passing yards. In 2013, he averaged 253. In 22, he averaged 267. In 21, he averaged 259, and so on. So Allen isn't quite up to his best just yet, but I do expect it to increase quite significantly as the season goes on. Josh Allen will go head-to-head now with the passing yard league leading Geno Smith. Geno has thrown for 1,985 yards in total, which averages out to a huge 283 passing yards per game. And that is a number that he has surpassed in 5 of his 7 games. So he's thrown for 283 yards or more in 5 of his last 7 games, that's a huge amount. The Seahawks are known to be a pass-first offense, and the team actually leads the league in passing yards on average, passing attempts per game, and pass completions per game. Now, if you haven't already guessed the game prop I'm going with, I'm going to be targeting the passing yard total in this game. That number has been set at 493.5. When you take Josh Allen and Geno Smith's averages, which is for Allen it's 211, for Geno Smith it's 283, they add up to 494. So the line the bookies have set is right on the money. The Bills' secondary has been known to allow receivers some decent yardage, so I could definitely see the Seahawks targeting that area in this game. The Bills' secondary ranks sort of middle of the pack for most categories. The same can be said for the Seahawks. Their secondary has been ranked as one of the worst. They also allow wide receivers a chunk of yardage in the majority of their games. They allow opposing quarterbacks an 82.6 quarterback rating every time they play, which is actually higher than Josh Allen's current quarterback rating, and he is the league leader in that category. As I mentioned at the beginning, I believe this has a potential for a shootout, a quarterback battle where the run game could essentially just be abandoned. The OCs for both teams could just let their guy sling it. This is more of a gut feeling mixed with a bit of hope, and a bit of hope in the game script that will sort of lean in our favour. But like I said, Josh Allen hasn't yet been utilised as much as he has in seasons prior. He's averaged over 250 yards in the last 4 seasons. So I'm going to back Josh Allen to throw. I'm going to say he throws 250. I'm going to say Geno throws 250 minimum for both guys. I'm going to back both quarterbacks to ball out, showcase their arm talent in this matchup, and I'm going to go 1 unit total match passing yards over 493.5, and that's odds of 1.9. So I think that is all my team bets done for the Sunday slate. So we're going to go into some player props. I've got a few player props, and the first one is going to be in the Texans and Colts games. Now, as soon as I say Texans, I'm pretty sure everyone's going to be thinking the same person that I am. So before I start and mention who it is, I know it's another divisional matchup. I just can't stop myself from betting in these divisional games. These two teams, they meet often, obviously, being in the same division. Twice a year, but this is actually the second time they've met this season so far. So in 8 weeks, this is the second time they've seen each other. So seeing each other in such close proximity should mean not much has changed in terms of their play styles, performance style, and things like that. Both teams should virtually be fully healthy. The Colts missed Richardson and Taylor for a few weeks, and the Texans missed Joe Mixon and Nico Collins for a few weeks. Nico Collins will remain out for this game, but Joe Mixon is back, and that is a huge boost to this offense. In that week 1 matchup, the Texans won by 2 points, and it was 29-27, and it was their ground game that actually led them to victory. The team rushed for 213 yards, 159 of those were from Joe Mixon. Since joining the team, Mixon has been running back 1, and even despite missing a few weeks through injury, he hasn't lost his role, he hasn't lost his usage, and he's still performing in great ways that he can. In games where Mixon has played a full game, he's averaging 22 carries, 125 rushing yards per game. This includes a season high 30 carries and 159 rushing yards against the Colts in week 1. The Colts are currently allowing the second most rushing yards to opposing teams per game on average of 159 yards, which is quite fitting because that's what Joe Mixon had in week 1. The rushing yard line for Joe Mixon this week is 76.5, and that number he has surpassed in all 3 of his full game appearances. So he did have an appearance against the Bears where he left the game due to injury, so we're not going to include that one. If he was healthy, he would have rushed for a lot more than what he did. So in his last 3 full game appearances, he's surpassed 77 plus in all 3. So during the season so far, the Colts have allowed opposing running back 1s to surpass this number in 5 of their 7 games. That includes 3 games in a row in the most recent 3 games. Some of the running backs they've actually allowed 77 or more rushing yards to are as follows. Chan, he had 77. Pollard had 93. Bigsby had 101. Josh Jacobs had 151. And Joe Mixon 159. So a lot of running backs there that are rushing over 77 yards. I understand that the Texans are coming off a disappointing loss and a disappointing performance by CJ Stroud. There could be a little bit of a game script where they get CJ Stroud into the game more, making him look, getting him back to his best, giving his confidence a big boost again. I think he threw for 88 yards against the Packers, so it wouldn't surprise me to see him, get going again this week. But you take away Nico Collins, who's wide receiver 1. I wouldn't say he's going to struggle, but I believe Joe Mixon, while he's back healthy and clearly having a career high type season, it would be foolish not to utilise him and make him the lead in this offense this week. As Joe Mixon is averaging 125 yards per game, he's had over 100 in all 3. I'm not gonna overthink it, and I'm gonna back Joe Mixon to rush this Texans team to glory. So I've actually got 2 plays. So I'm gonna go 1 unit, Joe Mixon over 76.5 rushing yards at odds of 1.80, and then I'm going to go half a unit on Joe Mixon over 99.5 rushing yards at odds of 3. So yeah, basically 1.5 units on him to rush for 100. If he hits 100, we double cash, we take it to the bank.
Fantasy football.
Now, as you all know, well, if you don't know, I'll explain it. I am partnered with a fantasy football app called Fantasy Game Day app, and it is available for all UK players. So obviously from the UK, your boys from the UK. So for UK players, it's a DFS, a daily fantasy football, and it basically gives you the opportunity to be the GM or the head coach of your own football team. So you get to pick a quarterback, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends. You get a flex position, and you get a captain spot. Now, the captain spot is worth double points, so whoever you select in that slot gets double points. It can be a running back, a wide receiver, or a tight end. It could be either one of those three. And the point of my little segment here is for me to give some sort of insight on my opinion on the best option for the captain slot, and I'm also going to do a little value player pick who the average amount for a player in this league is 5,000 points, and I'm going to suggest someone that's significantly under that can still get some points and has a potential upside of more points to give you the best opportunity to win in your fantasy football league this week. So we're going to start off with my first pick, which is going to be the captain selection, and I'm going to roll with the same approach that I had for last week, and I'm going to piggyback back of the last player I just spoke about. So my captain this week is going to be Joe Mixon. He's the Texans running back, and he is 7,400 on Fantasy Game Day app. So I feel like I covered pretty much everything in my breakdown for the rushing yard prop. Obviously, rewind a little bit, go back to it, and take another listen just in case. But I am going to add a little fantasy insight onto that. Joe Mixon is averaging 22 fantasy points per game. I believe Joe Mixon will rush for over 100 yards and a touchdown in this game, as well as picking up some yardage through the air. Anything around his sort of average fantasy points per game would be ideal, but as he's captain, double it. We could have another player that I've suggested go for 45 plus points this week, hopefully more, but 45 plus would be very, very happy with. So that's my captain selection, and we're going to go to my value player this week, and it's going to be one. I'm going to struggle to pronounce this, so bear with on this one. So it's going to be the Bengals wide receiver. Let's see, Yoshivas. Let's go with that. It's Yoshivas. He's 2,400 in this league. I've got to remember to pronounce his name correctly. Yoshivas. He's been a really solid option as wide receiver 3 for the Bengals. Towards the beginning of the season, he really helped this team in the passing game when they're without Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. So his pass catching ability is obviously worth noting. The last few weeks, however, his production has decreased. But with Chase gaining so much attention, it's hard to ignore that Yoshivas will make some plays. He's got ideal playmaking ability. And the fact he could be left one-on-one quite often could be a nice fit for Joe Burrow. He's had 25 plus yards in 5 out of 7 games this year. He's had 3 touchdowns on the season as well. He averages 2 receptions per game on 3 targets, and he's averaging 7.27 fantasy points per game. So if you can sort of get anywhere near that 7-8 mark, I'd be fairly happy. Anything extra would obviously be a bonus. So honestly, I wouldn't put it past him to take one of his little deep shots into the end zone, or even have a few targets in the end zone either. So he's proven he can do it before. He's had a few touchdown passes and things. So we're going to go Bengals wide receiver Yoshivas, 2,400. So you can get both of these two players for 9,800. So I think that's pretty good value. Hopefully these players can give you some ideal points this week. Let me know in the comments who you're taking. If you're going to be tailing me, that'll be great. If not, let me know who you're taking. I will put them into consideration for my own personal team this week as well. So that's my fantasy football selection out, and we're going to continue rolling to my next play, and it's going to be another player prop, and it's going to be in the Chiefs and the Raiders game. So for some reason I thought this was a Sunday Night Football game, but it is not. We are not that lucky. So we've got another divisional matchup though. Again, I just can't stay away. I just love me some divisional football. This one I'm going to keep fairly short and sweet. Hopefully, try not to ramble on as much as I can on this one, because honestly, I'm not a big fan of the Kansas City Chiefs at the moment. In my personal opinion, I think they'll probably the worst 6-0 team ever. But it is what it is, and we play with the hand we've been dealt. The spread in this game is -10, which is a huge number, and it's an auto lean for me to lean towards the underdogs when it's a +10 for the underdogs. One thing we know is the Chiefs haven't had a problem winning this season, but they have had a problem covering large spreads. 5 of their last 6 games have been one-score victories. And as much as I hate to say it, I don't think the Chiefs have much of a problem beating the Raiders in this game. With the Chiefs being such large favourites, this could mean the game script lands in my favour this week. I'm actually going to be targeting the rushing yards of Kareem Hunt in this matchup. So his line has been set at 67.5, which since his return to the Kansas City Chiefs, he hasn't had a problem reaching. He's now played 3 games since returning, all of which he went over 68 yards. He averages 83 along the way. There's a small concern that he may share some carries with Justin Steele and Samaje Perine, but in the last 3 weeks, Hunt has had 63 total carries. Steele's only had 13, Perine's only had 7, so it's not a concern of mine anymore. As for the Raiders, they haven't necessarily done badly against the run, but they haven't done brilliant either. They rank 10th for most rushing yards allowed, averaging 136. Kareem Hunt has actually faced the Raiders 3 times in his career. He's averaging 89 yards in those 3 games, with 87, 116 and 66 rushing yards in those 3. Honestly, I think it's just a simple case of the Chiefs lead early, and they run the ball, run the clock down. Kareem Hunt just happens to be the player that benefits the most from this game script. With the spread being a -10, it wouldn't be a shock to see the Chiefs up large throughout this game. So I said I'll keep it short. We've got Kareem Hunt over 67.5 rushing yards at odds of 1.9. But while I was reading over this play that I've just mentioned, I took a dive into some other angle. So I know I said I'll keep it short and sweet, but while looking into this game, I remembered that this game will have been circled for Mahomes after the Raiders mocked him in training camp with the Kermit the Frog, and the Kermit the Frog had Mahomes' jersey on. So that was a bit of a thing in pre-season. Patrick Mahomes actually responded with, "It'll be handled when it's handled." So this is that game where it's time to be handled. I don't have much hope for the Raiders' offense in general, but the Chiefs' offense is, fairly decent. Even though I hate to admit it, it's fairly decent. And with this added motivation, Mahomes should want to start the game strong. The Chiefs haven't necessarily been too successful in the first quarter this season, but I'm actually going to take a punt based on the narrative that the Chiefs will score early and probably before the Raiders. So I'm going to go with a unit on the Chiefs. First quarter race to 6 points at 1.65. So that's basically the Chiefs to score first. The Chiefs to score first. The Chiefs to get to 6 points first in the first quarter, and that's odds of 1.95. I think you can get it at plus money now as well. So keep an eye out for that one. That takes us to the end of NFL Sunday. So now let's go to NFL Monday. Monday Night Football.
Monday Night Football.
Yes, Monday Night Football. My last play of NFL Week 8. And it brings us to a Monday Night Football game against the Steelers and the Giants. A lot of people are going to be looking at this and be like, "Oh, New York Giants, yay!" But me, I was, "Yay, New York Giants!" I'm going to get straight to the point on this one, and the play I'm targeting in this game is going to be the over 36.5. Obviously, you're all going to be looking at me weird now because the Steelers aren't known for their offense, and the Giants are just terrible. So let me get into it. It goes without question that the Steelers are a top defense, potentially the best defense in the league. But ever since I saw this game, I leaned towards the over. So in back-to-back weeks, the Steelers have scored 30 plus, and in 4 of their last 5, they've scored 20 or more. In the season, so far, they're averaging 23, which is, is fairly decent considering they're not being labelled as a high-powered offense. With the total being 36.5, the Steelers have scored the majority of these 37 points in the last 2 weeks themselves. 4 of the last 4 Steelers games have gone over 36.5. Over to the New York Giants. They've just been dreadful. They've been terrible. They average only 14 points per game on the year. They've only managed 10 points combined in the last 2 games. And that actually marked the 3rd time this season they've scored under 10 points. As for the other 4 games, they've scored 15 or more, averaging 20 points. The Giants are also allowing opponents 21 points per game. I think this is just a game where both teams are able to score points, but more specifically the Steelers. The Steelers can score, if they can score roughly 27, I'll have no problem saying the Giants can score at least 10 of their own. Obviously, the more the Giants score, I believe the more chance this has. So it basically relies on the Giants, I think, this one. So this is it. It's a simple one. A low total on Monday Night Football. 2 teams not recognised for their offense. Both defenses are their strong suits. Let's fade it and let's back some points to finish the week. We're going to end the week Steelers Giants over 36.5 at odds of 1.9. So just to recap all my plays, I'll do it in order. So it'll be team props, player props, and then Monday Night Football. So we've got Green Bay Packers -4, Cincinnati Bengals moneyline, Detroit Lions team total over 27.5, Buffalo and Seattle over 493.5 passing yards, Kansas City Chiefs first quarter race to 6 points, Kareem Hunt over 67.5 rushing yards, Joe Mixon over 76.5 rushing yards, Joe Mixon over 99.5 rushing yards, and then we're going to finish with the Steelers and Giants over 36.5. So that brings me to the end of this episode. It's actually been a fairly long one, but you know what they say, the longer it is, the more information that's been shared. Knowledge is power, so hopefully I was able to share some insights with you that you wouldn't have thought about when you first looked at the games. Hopefully you all tail. I'd love to know if you do or not, so put it down in the comments down below if you tail. If not, let me know what you're on this week. Let me know what you liked, what you didn't like from my plays. And I appreciate everyone for listening this long. Appreciate everyone that made it to the end. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe on all socials. Turn the notifications on so you don't miss an episode. Join the Discord. There's virtually a 24/7 chat. It's popping right now. I'm looking at my phone. Discord chat is going crazy for Thursday Night Football. It went crazy for Thursday Night Football. It's going crazy for college football right now. NBA is popping as well. We've got a little bit of NHL and of course NFL as well. So get in there, get in the Discord. The Discord is in the link in my link tree in the comment in the bio, as is my Twitter, my TikTok. You can get this podcast on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, YouTube. My Substack's there for all my write-ups as well. So make sure you get on all of them. Show me all the love, all those. And we'll be back for my breakdown next Wednesday. And that is it for me this week. So I'll see you later. Catch you next week, and see you later.